Hello, beautiful sister. It's Fabienne, and I'm so happy to have you here with me today. If you have been around me or this podcast for a while, you know that I am not a fan of hustle culture. The whole no pain, no gain, that whole way of doing business, this glorification of burnout in our society, this badge of honor that we are told to wear for being consistently busy, it is just not the way that I believe women are meant to thrive and scale to seven figures in their business. And if you are here, I know you must somehow feel the same way. You want to grow your business, yes, and you want to earn abundantly, absolutely, but not at the expense of your sanity, not at the expense of your family, your body, your downtime, or your joy. I believe that you are in business to build something that really matters to you, that gives you great impact, that takes your mission forward. But I also believe that you don't want burnout. You want to do it in alignment with your feminine energy, not by suppressing it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today because I think that there's a little bit of misunderstanding in the feminine business world. Sometimes when we talk about doing business in a feminine way, we seem to throw structure completely out the window. I hear so many women who are in my industry who glorify flow and intuition and creativity and spaciousness. And of course, I believe in that too. Those things are sacred, but flow without structure gets really, really messy. And today I want to offer you a reframe that has been transformational for me and for the women who choose to step into our Boldheart community and let me guide them to seven figures without burnout. And here's the concept. Structure sets you free. Yes, structure. And I'm not talking about the kind of structure that boxes you in, but rather the kind that holds you. Not with rigidity, not in a robotic way, not in a way that makes you feel trapped, but structure that is deeply liberating. But here's the truth. The feminine energy needs a container, a strong container, so that it can flow. Otherwise, it just spills out everywhere. The masculine feminine polarity that we need in our business is what I want to really dive into today. And I want you to think about this. Think about water. Water is one of the most feminine elements there is. It's flowing, it's soft, it's powerful, and it is deeply alive. But without a riverbank, there's a flood. Without a glass, it's just a puddle on the floor or on your table. Water needs a container. And in the same way, your creativity, your intuition, your vision, your visionary genius, it needs a container in order to thrive. And that container is the structure of your business. This, I believe, is the divine polarity between the masculine energy and the feminine energy. Because the feminine is energy, and that's the idea. The feminine is creation, and the masculine is what holds it. The structure, the system, the calendar, the team, the processes, the standard operating procedures, the boundaries. If you only have feminine energy in your business, and believe me, I've met so many women who are just flowing in the feminine. If you're only in creation and flow and intuition, you probably feel really inspired, but nothing ever gets finished, does it? Things fall through the cracks. You're overwhelmed. You're constantly behind. But when you allow your feminine energy to be held by a supportive masculine structure, that is when you flourish. That's when your ideas become reality. It's also when your schedule becomes really spacious. And that's when your income becomes consistent. It's also when your team knows exactly what to do without you having to micromanage them. It's also when you start feeling more in control of your business instead of your business controlling you. So, even though you might have resisted structure in the past, maybe you don't want to get too corporate in your business. Maybe you just realize that, yeah, you built your business for freedom, but structure isn't the enemy. It is actually your best friend in business. I look at it this way: structure is the scaffolding that holds your feminine flow. Now, let's talk about some practical examples of liberating structure. Let me give you some things to think about, some examples from real life, both from my life and from my clients' lives. Let's start with something simple: your calendar. Most women resist putting too much on the calendar because it feels really restrictive. They fear that they're going to look at it and feel like, oh my God, I'm being boxed in. But when you design your calendar with intention, and when you block off deep work time and CEO time and off camera days and on camera days, when you build in content creation windows, you stop reacting to everybody else's priorities and you start protecting your own. That's when you don't wake up wondering what to do and just get in this loop of like, what should I do next? You just follow the sacred structure that you've already chosen ahead of time. And that creates freedom. It slows down the mind chatter. It gives you clarity. And clarity is freeing. Here's another example: processes and SOPs, standard operating procedures. I know that SOPs doesn't sound very sexy, but SOPs are literally how you buy back your time. You see, when you systematize the way that something is done in your business, whether it's onboarding a client or putting together a podcast or preparing a proposal, you free yourself from having to be the system. Instead, you follow a system, and it is incredibly freeing. You document it once, and someone else can execute it. And that is how you stop being the bottleneck. That is how you stop feeling like absolutely everything depends on you. Because guess what? That is not sustainable. You having everything on your shoulders, having a hand in every single aspect of your business, carrying every big load. You did not start your business to become this exhausted doer of everything. That has got to stop. You started your business to have impact and also freedom. And visionaries don't live in their inbox, or certainly not in their Asana board 24/7. Instead, let's talk about containers. Maybe you've heard me say this before. A container creates the transformation. I'm going to say that again so you can write it down. A container creates the transformation. When you set a time and space, maybe it's a weekly team meeting or a quarterly CEO retreat with yourself or with your team, or a weekly exponential growth activity day, you are honoring your feminine energy with what I call a sacred boundary. And boundaries, I believe, are the deepest act of self-love in business. A boundary is an act of self-love. Boundaries tell the universe that I value my energy, I value my time, and I will no longer leak my time and energy absolutely everywhere. Now let's go even deeper. For many of the women that I get to work with, their biggest point of resistance to structure isn't just about the systems or the documentation, it's actually an emotional resistance. Because somewhere along the way, you may have learned that structure equals control. That if you were too structured, you wouldn't be free and you wouldn't be intuitive and you would just feel trapped. But what if the opposite is true? What if the lack of structure is what's keeping you trapped? When your week is chaotic, you're not going to feel free. You're going to feel scattered and stressed and just in this reactive mode. What I've come to learn is when your business lacks systems, you don't feel creative. You feel overburdened, overwhelmed, and often you feel like you're behind on everything. When you're the only one who knows how to do everything, you're not that empowered, actually. You're so essential, and it is exhausting. And maybe you know exactly what I mean. So today, I want to invite you to try on a new belief. And at Boldheart, we are constantly working on our beliefs. This is the belief. Structure is how I honor my feminine energy. Structure is how I protect my vision. Structure is how I receive more support, get to rest more, and increase my revenues. So, what happens when you build this frame? Well, let me tell you what I see happen again and again when women in the Boldheart program start creating some real structure in their business. They start working less and they start earning more. The women in Boldheart take Fridays off. They plan unplugged vacations ahead of time. They start creating from a place of abundance. And what's so beautiful is that they don't have to choose between structure and intuition. You get to have both. You don't have to choose between systems and soul, or between success and just being your most authentic self. They finally understand that they can have both because the structure supports the feminine. And that's how they're scaling to 7 figures without burnout. That's how they reclaim 14 weeks off a year. And that's how they finally step into the CEO seat as opposed to the overworked employee in their own business. Admittedly, structure doesn't necessarily come naturally to you. I see this all the time. But we can absolutely change that. In fact, we can change it very easily. Let me ask you this. Where in your business are you still so essential that people can't do things without you? Where are you still the entire system that runs the business? And where are you leaking time, energy, and your income because you don't have enough structure and you're required for everything? And now, ask yourself, what would become possible for you if your business had a solid, scalable foundation so that your creativity and your intuition could actually take up more space? If these questions stir something in you, I believe that I can help. This is how we scale your business to 1 million or more with 14 weeks of time off every year. If this speaks to you, I would love to connect. If you want my eyes on your business and a real strategy for scaling to 7 figures with more time, more support, and more spaciousness, I am opening applications for a limited number of free 60-minute private Get Acquainted calls. In these Get Acquainted calls, I listen deeply to where you are. I look for the strategic blocks and the mindset blocks, and together we map out what your business could look like with the right support, the right systems, and the right structure in place. I give you your roadmap to 7 figures. And all you have to do is apply, and the way you apply is by answering just a few questions. I review the applications personally, and then I invite a small number of women to speak with me. I prepare ahead of time, I give you your roadmap, and then if you have any questions about Boldheart as your right next step, we can decide that together. This invitation is for women who are done being the bottleneck. And if that's you, you will find the link to apply for a free Get Acquainted call in the show notes. But even if we don't speak yet, let this episode be your invitation. I want you to stop believing that structure is too masculine and wrong. I want you to start seeing it as the gift that your feminine energy has been craving. Because freedom doesn't come from chaos or burnout. It comes from choosing structure that feels like love. I dare say it, love. You are allowed to have both. And I am cheering you on, always. I want this for you. I'm sending you all my love and my belief in you and your bigger future.